When I first moved into Willow Creek Estates, I thought I had struck gold. The lawns were manicured, the driveways spotless. And everyone waved when you passed by. It was the sort of neighborhood that advertised peace and harmony in its brochures. The Homeowners Association, better known as the HOA, was supposed to keep it that way. But as I quickly learned, peace had a self-appointed guardian, Karen Wilcox. Karen was the HOA president. And if you've ever dealt with one of those Karens, you know exactly what I mean. She had that permanent frown like she was sniffing something unpleasant. And she carried a clipboard as if it were a royal decree. From the day I moved in, she made her presence known. Your recycling bin is 6 inches too far from the curb, she informed me on day 2. Your porch light isn't the HOA-approved warm tone, she told me on day 3. And by the end of week 1, I had already received my first, friendly reminder notice. I tried to be polite. I smiled, nodded, and adjusted whatever trivial thing she pointed out. But behind her faux pleasant smile was something sharper: control. She thrived on it. Every car parked too long, every lawn a little too wild, she pounced. When I installed my new security system, a full set of cameras around the property, Karen made it her business to comment. We value privacy in this community, she said, crossing her arms. You should probably clear that with the board. I didn't need to. HOA guidelines didn't restrict home security cameras. But that was Karen, rules only applied when she enforced them. Then, 3 weeks later, strange things started happening. My garden gnome went missing. The gate latch was mysteriously undone one morning. Small, trivial, yet unsettling. I assumed it was kids, but my gut said otherwise. Late one night, I caught a glint on my doorbell camera, someone walking up my driveway, flashlight in hand. When I checked the footage the next morning, the face froze my blood. It was Karen. She was jiggling my doorknob. Then she took out something shiny, a key ring, and tried each one in the lock. She looked annoyed when none worked. After a few tries, she left, muttering to herself. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The HOA president was trying to unlock my front door. And the best part? I had every second on camera. That's when I knew this wasn't about HOA rules anymore. It was personal. The next morning, I printed out the still image of Karen on my porch and slid it into a folder. My hands were shaking, half from anger, half from disbelief. Who does that? I decided to test a theory. Around noon, I walked out to my mailbox. Just as Karen was pruning her perfectly rectangular rosebushes across the street. Morning, Karen. I called out cheerfully. She froze for a moment, then smiled that tight, insincere smile. Oh, hello. Everything all right? Oh, just great, I said. Although, funny thing, I had some footage of someone trying to use a key on my door last night. Looked a lot like you. Her eyes widened for a split second before she regained composure. Me? Oh, heavens no. I was asleep by 10, she said, laughing a little too loudly. Maybe it was the mailman. At midnight. I raised an eyebrow. Well, she huffed, it's not my problem if you're imagining things. Maybe those cameras are picking up reflections. Sure, Karen. Reflections that look exactly like your face. I didn't push further. I wanted to see how far she'd go. That evening, I checked my footage again. At exactly 11:42 p.m., she returned. This time, she carried something in her hand, a silver key with a small label that read, University, 3. She tried it once, twice, then again. When it didn't work, she muttered something like, stupid locks. They said this one should fit all the new houses. So that was it, a universal key. Apparently, the HOA or the builder had some kind of master key system. And Karen, of course, thought it was her divine right to have one. The next morning, I decided to ask around. My neighbor across the street, Mark, was more than happy to talk. Oh, yeah, he said. Karen's got one of those master keys. She told me it was for emergency. Inspections. But I've never seen any written rule about it. I could feel my blood boiling. She had been entering people's homes under the pretense of HOA safety checks. By that point, I had an entire plan forming. I printed the videos, screenshots, timestamps, and even clipped the part where she said universal key. Then I emailed them to the HOA board members, without mentioning her name in the subject line. By the next morning, chaos erupted. Every board member called an emergency meeting. And Karen? She showed up with her clipboard, ready to spin her story. She didn't know yet that this time, the cameras had caught everything. The HOA emergency meeting took place on Saturday morning at the clubhouse. Usually, those gatherings were dull affairs, coffee, cookies, and endless debates about mailbox colors. But this time, the air was thick with tension. Karen sat at the head of the table, her usual posture of authority in full effect. Now, she began, tapping her pen, I understand there's been some misunderstanding regarding community security. I sat quietly until my name came up. Mr. Lewis, she said with that fake sweetness. You seem to believe I was on your property at night. That's quite a serious accusation. Not an accusation, I replied, sliding a USB drive across the table. Evidence. The room fell silent as one of the board members, Janet, plugged it into the laptop. On the screen appeared the footage, Karen walking up my driveway, flashlight in hand. Then the unmistakable shot of her pulling out the UNIV 3 key and trying it in my lock. The collective gasp was priceless. Karen. Someone exclaimed. What on earth were you doing? Karen's composure cracked. That can't be me, she stammered. This video's been doctored. It's time-stamped, I said calmly. And there's the HOA badge on your jacket. Hard to fake that. Another board member leaned forward. Karen, do you actually possess a universal key to homeowners' properties? She hesitated. Well, yes, but only for emergencies. It's standard procedure. No, it's not, Janet cut in sharply. I've been on the board for 6 years. There's no such policy allowing personal access to homes. Karen's face turned crimson. Well, maybe it's not official. But someone has to make sure residents follow the rules. So you break into houses to check compliance? I asked. Her jaw tightened. I didn't break in. I was making sure your door lock met the HOA specifications. Laughter broke out around the room. Even the treasurer, who never cracked a smile, let out a low chuckle. That's enough, said Janet. Karen, this is a gross violation of privacy. Effective immediately. We're suspending your HOA privileges pending investigation. Karen's mouth fell open. You can't do that. I am the HOA. Not anymore, Janet replied coolly. I sat back, trying to hide my satisfaction. Karen stormed out, muttering threats about lawsuits and false accusations. But I knew she wasn't done yet. People like her never admit defeat, they just change tactics. I just didn't realize how far she'd go next. 2 days after the meeting, I woke up to an alert from my security app, Motion. Detected near the garage at 3:17 a.m. My stomach dropped. I opened the feed and there she was again, Karen. Flashlight in hand, pacing like a caged animal. She wasn't trying the door this time. She was ripping down my security camera. I called the police immediately. Someone's vandalizing my property, I said, my voice steady but furious. And I have her on video. When the patrol car pulled up 15 minutes later, she was still there. Yelling something about illegal surveillance. The officers caught her mid-rant. Screwdriver in hand. What seems to be the problem, ma'am? One of them asked. She's been spying on me. Karen shouted, pointing at my camera. That's against HOA policy. The officer looked at me, then back at her. Ma'am, that's his house. He's allowed to have cameras. What are you doing on his property? She froze. I was conducting an inspection. At 3 in the morning. Karen's face went pale. By dawn, she was escorted off my property, sputtering about false charges and community rights. I provided the footage, clear, direct, undeniable. The officer nodded and took her statement. Later that week, the HOA board held a special vote. Karen was officially removed from her position, banned from conducting any HOA business, and fined for unauthorized entry and property damage. Word spread fast. For the first time since I moved in, people smiled when they saw me. One neighbor, Mark, clapped me on the back. "You finally did it," he said. "She's been terrorizing this place for years." I laughed. All it took was a few cameras. But the story didn't end there. A month later, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a short letter, handwritten in shaky penmanship. "You think you won, but people like me keep communities safe. You'll regret making enemies in Willow Creek. K." I smiled as I read it and slid it into a folder with the other evidence. Then I placed the folder in my safe, next to the UNIV 3 key I had recovered after she dropped it that night. That key was a symbol now, not of control, but of how far someone will go when they believe the rules don't apply to them. And as for me, my cameras still roll every night. Because in neighborhoods like this, you never know who's holding the next universal key.